Well, let's turn our attention now to the annual CPAC Conservative Political Action Conference taking place right now in Washington, D.C. And I'm thrilled to be joined by filmmaker and journalist and great friend of this program, Ami Horowitz. Ami, welcome to the program. What's the scene like here at CPAC in the first month of President Trump's second term? I imagine the energy must be kind of off the charts right now.
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's been 4 years, a long time between drinks. So yeah, people are taking advantage. There's electricity. People are excited. They've had a number of very interesting first guests. J.D. Vance obviously brought the house down. No, people are pumped. People are excited for good reason. Look, this is a new beginning for them, and they're excited.
Yeah, and now, how are people now reacting there to some of the big news of the week there? I mean, what has been the breakdown of people how they're feeling about America's treatment of Russia and Ukraine and all of this, because it has been dominating the headlines in Australia this week? I mean, where are they standing? Are people with Trump on this?
Look, one of the really interesting things about Donald Trump is his ability to get basically both sides of the issue behind him, right? You've got more of the relations group and more of the traditional Republican group. They're all aligned behind Donald Trump, which is so fascinating. I think that, look, there's for sure a split between how people view what Donald Trump said about Zelensky and his position on Russia. I, for one, am out of the business of attacking Trump for his vitriolic comments, because what I have found is, I've done it in the past, right? I've been burned, where he attacked NATO, and I said, what do you mean you want to leave NATO? That is crazy town. And of course, what that was a negotiating tactic in order to get Europe to pay their 2% share, which he had done. And then when he said, I'm going to leave, I'm going to attack, or I'm going to buy Greenland, people went crazy. I went crazy. What is that? It's unhinged behavior. Of course, what was that? It was a negotiating tactic, and essentially what he meant to do and what he ultimately did was he wanted Denmark to pay more money because Greenland is a strategic choke point for China and for Russia. They need to spend more time and attention on that. That's exactly what happened. So
yeah,
look, what is he doing here with Russia? We're not all exactly sure. But I think he's playing the heel. I think it's a negotiating tactic. And I think people here recognize that.
Well, look, let's wait and see on that here. And I think on Greenland, obviously, if you look at the globe from, the North Pole, you see exactly why Greenland is so important to absolutely everybody. But, as a contrast to Trump, I spoke about Vice President J.D. Vance's speech and his talk there at the start of the program here. I am finding him to be so refreshing as just this sort of intellectual ballast of this administration, and the way that he manages to tie different issues together, like free speech and defense and open borders, and make people understand how they're all connected. Is J.D. Vance just bringing the house down there at CPAC?
J.D. Vance is extraordinarily popular in these halls, no question about it. As opposed to Kamala Harris. Remember her? Remember that name, James? Did we forget about it? In direct contrast to her, he really is a man who understands the world. As you said, he is truly an intellectual. And I think he has really brought Republicans together. I think people are looking at him as a leader in terms both in domestic policy and in foreign policy for this administration. And I think his speech was well received. It was, of course, attacked by the mainstream press, as was his speech in Munich, which I thought was phenomenal. He made that joke about Greta Thunberg. I thought it was hilarious. People found it offensive. I don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, no, he has been very popular, not just in these halls, but very popular among the Republican Party loyalists, for sure.
So tell me this here. We got this big gathering of conservatives, conservative intellectuals, conservative politicians, conservative influencers. What are the big issues? What are the big priorities that you think are going to come out of this, and are they going to be things that will, how will they advance, this administration? Or is there a danger, as I've heard from some people, that there's going to be, a disconnect from the conservative right, like there was from, the Democrat left, from what people out there on the street want?
Yeah, I think with any administration, I think whether it be the left with the Democrats or the right with the Republicans, I think sometimes you're really excited about what they're doing. Sometimes you're not so happy with what they're doing. I think for the most part, people have been very happy with what Trump is doing. How long that will last is tough to say. Look, at the end of the day, he has certain things he has to accomplish, things that he had to do based on what he promised he was going to do for the election, and that is bring down prices and stop illegal immigration. Well, he's certainly done the latter. Immigration is down to, illegal immigration is nearly down to zero. Everyone is excited. Now, what he has to do next is bring down prices. Now, obviously, it's too early to really have any policy having an effect on price. Obviously, the Democrats are trying to tie him to that now, but it's ridiculous. It's silliness.
Yeah.
But look, there is controversy on his tariff proposal, right? And is that a negotiating tactic like it was with Canada and Mexico, or is that something he's really going to do with Europe? We don't know. But I think that he has made clear that if he does this, prices will continue to stay high for a while, and that will create some angst among Republican loyalists and among the country in general. So again, I don't know if he's doing this as a tactic to negotiate with Europe or it's actually what his policy is going to be.
And tell me now, let's get into sort of specifics about CPAC. Who was the most interesting person or speaker you've seen here? Because, obviously we're here in Australia, so we don't get all of it. So what's been the most interesting person or speaker or idea you've heard come out of this so far?
Well, I think the one who will, be fascinating is Tom Homan, right? I mean, because his job is, in fact, to keep immigration down. So I think that's going to probably be one of the more interesting ones. And again, going back to J.D. Vance, I think J.D. Vance was and probably will be the most popular speaker that will speak here. I think that people really gravitate toward both his energy and his intellectual bona fides. Ben Shapiro's speaking here. I think Ben has a massive following here at CPAC. That's going to be very fascinating. Look, the Republican Party has a very deep and interesting bench. I think it's being showcased here at CPAC. I think people find it fascinating.
Well, fantastic, Ami. Glad you're there. Can't wait to hear more about it next time we chat. Thank you so much for joining me on the U.S. Report.